The moment I realized I was buried alive beneath his wedding ceremony, I stopped screaming. Not because I'd given up, but because I finally understood that no one was coming to accidentally find me. This wasn't neglect. This was planned, calculated. They'd put me here on purpose, directly under the ceremony hall, so I could hear every vow he spoke to another woman while I clawed at stone walls in complete darkness. They wanted me to hear my own replacement happening in real time, right above my head, while I suffocated in this forgotten basement that smelled of mold and old earth and death. Hey, family, quick question for you. How does this new voice sound in your ears? Is it comfortable, clear, easy to follow? If you love it, please hit the like button and drop a quick comment so I know I'm on the right track. If it's not your taste, don't hesitate to tell me in the comments too. Your feedback is what helps me adjust and grow. And if there's another voice style you'd love me to try, just say it. I'm here because of you, and I've stayed consistent because you keep watching, correcting, and supporting me. Let's keep growing together. Now let me take you back to the morning it all started. The morning I thought I was preparing to become a queen. My name is Soledad, and I was supposed to marry Alpha King Matthias that afternoon. Not in some quiet private ceremony, but in front of the entire pack, the council, visiting Alpha's Peters from 3 territories, and his family who smiled at me over breakfast like I already belonged to them. I remember his mother, Catalina, kissing both my cheeks and telling me I looked radiant. His sister, Ines, kept adjusting my hair and saying she couldn't wait to finally have a sister who understood what it meant to stand beside powerful men. I was a nobody before Matthias, an omega from the outer village of Dos Rios who worked in my grandmother's fabric shop and never expected to be anyone's mate, let alone chosen by the Alpha King himself. When he walked into my shop 6 months earlier looking for ceremonial cloth, our bond snapped into place so fast it knocked the breath from both of us. He told me right there, surrounded by bolts of linen and silk, that I was his, that nothing would keep us apart, that he'd been waiting his entire life to feel what he felt the moment our eyes met. Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Please tell us where you're watching from. It matters so much to me to know this story is reaching you wherever you are. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with your friends who need to hear it, and drop your perspectives in the comments section below. Your voices make this space what it is. But I need you to understand something about amiga mates in our world, especially ones like me, who come from nothing. The council has final approval over all Alpha King matches. They have to verify bloodlines, check family histories, ensure the Omega can produce strong heirs and represent the kingdom properly. It's tradition, it's law. And for 6 months, while Matthias and I built our bond in secret meetings and stolen nights, the council was doing exactly that, investigating every corner of my life, my family, my worth. 3 weeks before the wedding, they gave their approval. Catalina herself brought me the news over tea in the palace gardens, holding my hands and welcoming me officially into the Reyes family. I cried. She cried. Ines presented me with a silver bracelet that had belonged to Matthias's grandmother, the last queen anyone truly respected. Everything felt perfect, destined, right. I should have noticed the small things that didn't fit. The way Catalina's smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me alone. How Ines asked too many questions about my childhood, my education, my family's finances, always with this look on her face like she was cataloguing my deficiencies. The council members who would go silent when I entered rooms, their conversations cutting off mid-sentence. Matthias noticed none of it. He was too happy, too consumed with finally having his mate, too busy planning our future to see the present clearly. The morning of the wedding, Catalina and Ines came to my chambers early. I was already dressed in the simple white gown we'd chosen, nothing elaborate, because Matthias said he wanted to see me, not a costume. They brought tea. Special tea, Ines said, made from herbs that would calm my nerves and help me glow during the ceremony. I drank it. Why wouldn't I? These were going to be my family in a few hours. 20 minutes later, my head started to feel thick and heavy, like someone had filled it with wet cotton. Catalina suggested we go downstairs to see the ceremony hall before guests arrived, so I could walk through it once and feel less anxious. It made sense. It sounded kind. I followed them down the main stairs, then down another flight I didn't recognize, then through a door into a stone corridor that got darker with every step. That's when I knew something was wrong. But by then, the tea had made my body slow and my thoughts cloudy, and when Inez shoved me hard into a small room that smelled like decay, I fell instead of fighting back. The door slammed, a lock clicked, and Catalina's voice came through the wood, clear and cold. "You were never going to be Queen, Omega. Did you really think we'd let someone like you stand beside our king?" I heard their footsteps fade. I heard that lock click a second time, then a third. I heard something heavy drag across the floor above me, furniture, maybe, or a chest, covering the door I'd just come through. And then I heard nothing but my own breathing in complete, total darkness. But what I didn't hear yet was the worst part. What came next? The sounds from above that would break something inside me I'm not sure ever fully healed. The darkness was so complete, I couldn't see my own hands when I held them inches from my face. I've heard people describe darkness before, but this was different. This wasn't night, or closed eyes, or a room with curtains drawn. This was the kind of darkness that exists underground, beneath stone and earth, where light has never reached and never will. The air tasted stale and metallic, like I was breathing in rust and time itself. My white wedding gown was somewhere on my body, but I couldn't see it. For all I knew, I'd disappeared entirely. The first thing I did was scream. Not words, just sound. Raw and loud and desperate. I screamed until my throat burned and my voice cracked into nothing but ragged air. I screamed his name. Matthias. 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 Over and over until the name itself lost meaning and became just noise, bouncing off stone walls that swallowed every echo. No one came. I felt along the walls with shaking hands. Cold stone. Damp in places, smooth in others, like it had been carved deliberately. The room was small, maybe 8 feet by 8 feet. I found the door by touch. Thick wood, no handle on my side, no gap underneath for light or air. I pounded on it until my palms went numb. I kicked it until my bare feet screamed in pain. The wood didn't budge, didn't crack, didn't even echo like it might be hollow. This room had been built to hold someone, and I was starting to understand it had been built to hold someone until they stopped making noise. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, trying to think through the fog the tea had left in my mind. Why would Catalina and Inez do this? What did they mean I was never going to be queen? The council had approved me. Matthias had chosen me. We had a bond, a real mate bond that neither of us could fake or deny. I'd felt it every day for 6 months, that golden thread connecting us, warm and alive and constant. Then I felt it. The bond. Still there, still intact, but stretched thin like a wire pulled too tight. And through it, I felt him. Matthias. Somewhere above me, moving, breathing, alive. He felt calm, happy even. He had no idea anything was wrong. I grabbed onto that bond with everything I had and pulled, sent everything I could through it. Fear, panic, pain, desperation. I screamed his name inside my mind the way mates do when they're connected. Matthias, I'm here. I'm below you. Something's wrong. Please feel me. Please. Nothing. No response. No shift in his emotions. The bond stayed open, but he wasn't listening. Or he couldn't hear me. Or something was blocking me from reaching him the way I should have been able to. That's when I heard the first sounds from above. Footsteps. Many of them. Voices, muffled but distinct. Music starting, strings and drums, the ceremonial processional we'd chosen together. My heart stopped beating for a full second because I understood what was happening. The wedding was starting. Above me, right above me. I screamed again, this time with words. I'm down here. The bride is down here. Stop! Someone stop! I threw myself at the door, hitting it with my entire body, not caring that pain shot through my shoulder with each impact. Matthias! Matthias, I'm here! I'm right here! The music got louder. I heard shuffling, people taking their seats. I heard someone speaking, a man's deep voice that had to be Padre Sebastian, who was supposed to officiate. The words were too muffled to make out, but I knew what he was saying because we'd rehearsed it. Welcome, gathering, sacred bond, witness. And then I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. A woman's voice, high and clear and delicate. Speaking vows. Not my voice, someone else's voice. Another woman was standing where I was supposed to be, saying words I was supposed to say, holding hands I was supposed to hold. Through the bond, I felt Matthias's confusion spike, then settle. Felt his hesitation, then acceptance. Felt him adapt to something he didn't understand, but was being told was right. They'd done something to him, convinced him of something. Fed him some lie that made sense of my absence. I pressed my ear to the ceiling, the floor of the ceremony hall, and I could hear better now. The woman's voice was soft but steady. I, Valentina Ibarra, take you, Matthias Reyes. Valentina, I knew that name. Daughter of Councilman Ibarra, one of the most powerful families in the kingdom. Beautiful, educated, connected, everything I wasn't. Everything an Alpha King's mate was supposed to be according to tradition and bloodlines and the old ways. They hadn't just locked me away. They'd replaced me, erased me, acted like I'd never existed in the first place. And Matthias was going through with it. I don't know how long I stayed there on that floor, listening to my own wedding happen without me. Time stopped meaning anything. I heard vows. I heard promises. I heard Padre Sebastian pronounce them bound. I heard cheering and music shifting into celebration and footsteps moving in patterns that meant dancing had started. The bond stayed open, but changed. I felt the exact moment another bond tried to form between Matthias and this Valentina woman. Felt it like a knife trying to cut into something that was already occupied. It didn't take, not fully, because you can't form a true mate bond with someone who isn't your mate. But it did something. Made a mark. Left a scar on what we had. And still, he didn't come for me. Hours passed. My body was shutting down from the tea, from dehydration, from shock. I couldn't scream anymore. Could barely whisper. I lay on that stone floor in my wedding dress that no one would ever see, and felt our bond stretch thinner and thinner like a thread about to snap. Above me, the celebration continued. I heard laughter, toasts, the clinking of glasses. At one point, I heard Matthias's voice directly above me, so close I could almost make out words. He was happy, dancing with his new bride, accepting congratulations, living a life that had written me out of the story completely. That's when I stopped fighting and started planning. Because if I survived this, if I somehow got out of this darkness alive, someone was going to answer for what they'd done. And the first question I needed answered was simple. Did Matthias know I was down here, or had they fooled him too? The bond was screaming now, and I finally understood why he couldn't hear me. It wasn't that Matthias wasn't listening. It was that someone had taught him not to. For hours in that darkness, I'd felt our connection behaving strangely, muted on his end, like someone had wrapped his half in thick wool. Then I remembered something Catalina had said weeks ago during a family dinner. She'd been talking about alpha training, how the strongest alphas learn to compartmentalize their instincts during political events. Otherwise, she'd laughed, touching Matthias's shoulder, you'd never survive a council meeting without ripping someone's throat out every time your wolf disagreed. They'd trained him to ignore his instincts, to override the bond when duty called. And a wedding, a ceremony, a kingdom watching, that was duty. That was exactly when an alpha king would shut down the animal part of himself and perform the role he was born into, which meant they'd counted on this. Catalina and Inez and whoever else was involved had planned this knowing Matthias would feel something wrong, but would dismiss it as wedding nerves or cold feet, or the stress of a public ceremony. They'd built their trap around his training, his discipline, his desperate need to be the king everyone expected. I pressed my hands flat against the stone floor beneath me, the ceiling above me, and felt vibrations. Footsteps. So many footsteps. The reception was in full swing. I could track the movement of dancers, the rhythm of celebration, the pulse of a party that should have been mine. My body was failing. The tea they'd given me wasn't just a sedative, it was something stronger, something that made my limbs heavy and my thoughts slow. I couldn't stand anymore without the room spinning. My tongue felt thick and dry, stuck to the roof of my mouth. I'd been down here for what felt like 6 or 7 hours now, and I hadn't had water since early morning. But the worst part wasn't the physical breakdown. It was feeling him through the bond. Feeling Matthias dance, laugh, accept toasts. I felt the moment he kissed Valentina. Not a real kiss, not one with any heat or meaning behind it, but a kiss, nonetheless. A public claim. A symbolic binding. And I felt the exact moment his wolf finally started to wake up and question what was happening. It came as a sharp spike of confusion through our bond. Then concern. Then something darker, a growing unease that didn't match the celebration around him. I grabbed onto that feeling and pulled with everything I had left, sending images, memories, anything that might reach him. Our first meeting. The fabric shop. His hands in my hair, his voice promising nothing would separate us. The bond flickered. He felt something. I knew he did, because his emotions shifted from content to disturbed in seconds. Above me, the music stumbled, then continued. I heard his voice, muffled but unmistakable, asking something. Heard other voices responding, reassuring. Heard Catalina's distinctive laugh, that light, dismissive sound she made when someone said something she considered foolish. Then the footsteps directly above me stopped. Everything went quiet for a moment, like someone had paused mid-celebration. I held my breath, every nerve in my body screaming for him to feel me, to know, to understand that something was desperately wrong. Matthias? A woman's voice. Valentina, I assumed, soft and concerned. Are you all right? You look pale. I feel... His voice was strained, confused. Something isn't right. Wedding jitters. That was Catalina, smooth and practiced. Completely normal, mi amor. Every alpha feels this way when the reality of binding finally sets in. Come, have some wine. Dance with your mother. No, it's not that. It's... He stopped. I felt him through the bond, felt him trying to access instincts he'd been taught to suppress. Where's Soledad? My heart seized. He'd said my name. Finally. After hours of celebration, he'd finally asked. Darling, we told you. Ines this time, patient and kind, like she was explaining something to a child. She left. Yesterday. You saw the note yourself. I saw a note. His voice was sharper now. But I never felt... The bond was new, Catalina interrupted. Unstable. She was an omega from nothing. Matthias. She panicked. Got overwhelmed by what becoming queen would mean. These things happen with unsuitable matches. Thank God the council had Valentina prepared as a backup, or this entire ceremony would have been a disaster. Silence, long and heavy. I felt him warring with himself through the bond, his trained mind accepting the logic, his wolf screaming that something was wrong. I need to find her, he said finally. I need to know she's safe. After the reception, Catalina said firmly, you have 400 guests and a new bride. You can send trackers tomorrow to verify the girl made it home safely. Tonight, you have responsibilities. The footsteps moved away. The music swelled again, and I felt him suppress his instincts one more time, shoving down the wolf that was clawing to get out, choosing duty over the bond that was begging him to dig. I wanted to hate him for it. Wanted to scream that he was weak, that a real mate would have torn the building apart by now. But I couldn't, because I knew what they'd done. They'd built a perfect lie using his own training against him, his own sense of honor and responsibility as the trap that kept him upstairs while I died downstairs. Hours crawled by. My consciousness started to slip, fading in and out like a candle in wind. I dreamed, or maybe hallucinated, that I was back in my grandmother's shop, wrapping silk around my fingers, safe and small and anonymous. No palace, no crown, no alpha king who loved me but couldn't save me. When I woke, if I'd even been asleep, the sounds above had changed. Fewer footsteps, quieter music. The reception was winding down. I heard goodbyes being called, carriages being summoned, guests departing into the night. And then I heard something that made my failing heart spike with desperate hope. Footsteps, heavy and fast, running, right above me, moving in a frantic pattern like someone searching. His voice, loud now, demanding. Where would she have gone? Show me the room she was staying in. Show me now. Matthias, please, you're embarrassing. Show me. A crash. Something breaking. Something is wrong. I can feel it. I've been feeling it all day, and I ignored it like you taught me to ignore it. But I'm done ignoring it. Where is she? The bond suddenly blazed between us, no longer muted, like he'd finally ripped away whatever was blocking it. I felt his panic, his rage, his wolf fully awake now and howling. And I felt the exact moment his alpha instinct overrode everything else and told him exactly where to look. Down. The first crack in the floor above me sounded like thunder in the darkness. I didn't understand what I was hearing at first. My mind had gone hazy, floating somewhere between consciousness and whatever comes after. But then there was another crack, louder this time, and chunks of stone and wood began raining down onto my face. Dust filled my lungs. Light, actual light, pierced through a small hole in the ceiling, and I couldn't even lift my hand to shield my eyes because my body had stopped responding hours ago. Soledad! His voice tore through the opening, raw and desperate, and nothing like the controlled Alpha King I'd heard celebrating earlier. Soledad, if you're down there, make a sound. Any sound. Please. I tried. God, I tried. But my throat was so dry and damaged from screaming that all that came out was a whisper of air, barely more than breath. It wouldn't reach him. I was too weak, too broken, too close to gone. But the bond. The bond was awake now, screaming between us, and through it he felt me, felt my terror and relief and pain all tangled together. Another crash. The hole in the ceiling widened. I saw his hands, his beautiful, strong hands that had held mine so gently, tearing at stone and wood like they were paper. Saw his face appear in the gap, streaked with dust and sweat, eyes wild and glowing that distinctive gold that meant his wolf was at the surface. When he saw me lying there on the floor in my ruined white dress, something in his expression shattered. No, he breathed. No, no. No! He disappeared from the hole, and I heard him shouting, Get axes, get tools, get every guard in this palace down here now, and someone bring me Catalina and Ines. Bring them now, or I'll burn this entire building down. More crashing, more breaking. He was tearing through the floor with his bare hands, ripping apart the ceremony hall where he'd just married another woman, destroying his own wedding venue to reach me. I heard other voices joining his, guards, I think, responding to their alpha's command. Heard the sound of metal tools biting into wood and stone. The hole widened to the size of a door, then bigger. Light flooded my prison, so bright after hours of darkness that it felt like knives in my eyes. I turned my head away, and that small movement was enough to make the world spin. Then he was there. Dropping through the opening, landing beside me, gathering me into his arms like I was made of glass. Soledad, mi alma, look at me. Please look at me. I managed to open my eyes. His face was inches from mine, covered in dust and blood from where he'd torn his hands apart, clawing through the floor. Tears cut clean lines down his dirty cheeks. He was shaking, this powerful alpha king, trembling like a child as he held me. "Who did this?" His voice was barely human. "Who put you here?" I tried to speak, but my throat wouldn't work. Couldn't form words. Could barely breathe. "Don't talk. Don't try. I've got you. I'm getting you out." He stood, lifting me like I weighed nothing, and I saw his legs were bleeding too. He'd destroyed himself to reach me. Behind him, guards were widening the hole further, creating a path up. Above, I could see the ceremony hall, flowers everywhere, chairs pushed aside, the beautiful space we'd planned together now wrecked and ruined, just like us. He carried me up through the opening, and the moment we emerged into the hall, I saw them. Catalina and Ines, held between 4 guards, both of them pale and wide-eyed. Valentina stood off to the side in her wedding dress, my wedding dress, the role that was supposed to be mine, looking confused and horrified. "Someone explain," Matthias said quietly, "why my mate was buried alive beneath my wedding ceremony. And someone explain it now, before I start killing people." The silence stretched, long enough that I felt his wolf pushing closer to the surface, felt the rage building through our bond like a tsunami about to break. "She wasn't suitable," Catalina said finally, lifting her chin with that pride she always carried. "The council agreed. The council approved her," Matthias roared, and every guard in the room flinched. "3 weeks ago they gave their formal approval. I have the documents." "Those documents were influenced by your bond," Ines tried, her voice shaking. "You weren't thinking clearly. We had to protect you from making a mistake that would weaken the entire kingdom. An Omega from nowhere with no education, no family name, no... So you buried her." He took a step forward, still holding me, and I felt murder in his heart, literal murder. "You put her in a hole under my feet and let me marry someone else while she died? My mate? My true mate?" "We gave her tea." Catalina's mask was cracking now, fear bleeding through. "It was supposed to make her sleep, make it peaceful. We didn't know we didn't think you poisoned her." His voice went dead calm, which was somehow more terrifying than the rage. "You poisoned my mate and buried her alive to die slowly while I celebrated above her. My own mother, my own sister." I felt the moment his control finally snapped, felt it through the bond like a rope breaking. He handed me carefully to the nearest guard, a man named Raphael who'd always been kind to me, and turned back to his family with eyes that were no longer even partially human. "Matthias, please." Ines backed up, hands raised. "We were trying to help you. The kingdom needs a queen who is my true mate," he snarled. "Not a political arrangement, not a suitable match. Her, only her. And you tried to murder her." "We were protecting the bloodline." Catalina's composure broke completely. "She's nobody. Her grandmother sells fabric. Her family has nothing. No title, no legacy, no pulse," Matthias interrupted, looking at me. "She almost has no pulse because of you." That's when Valentina stepped forward, and everyone in the room went still. She moved to Matthias's side, looked him directly in the eyes, and said something I never expected. "The marriage isn't valid." Her voice was steady, certain. "We're not true mates. The bond didn't take. Every person in this room knows that what happened today was a lie built on false pretenses and someone's attempted murder. Padre Sebastian," she turned to the priest who'd performed the ceremony, "can a marriage be valid if the groom's true mate was imprisoned during the vows?" The old priest looked sick. "No, child, it cannot. The ceremonies are sacred only when entered freely and truthfully." Valentina nodded, then began removing the silver bands from her fingers, the ceremonial rings. "Then I'm not your wife. I never was. And someone needs to call the healers before your actual bride dies in that guard's arms." Everything after that happened in fragments. Healers rushing in, hands examining me, liquids forced past my lips. Matthias's voice giving orders that sounded like thunder. Catalina and Ines being dragged away in chains. Valentina standing alone in a wedding dress, watching the ceremony of her life dissolve with remarkable grace. But the image burned into my mind was simpler. It was Matthias dropping to his knees beside where they'd laid me, pressing his forehead to mine, whispering the same words over and over like a prayer. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have felt you. I'm sorry. And through the bond, I felt something that made my broken heart hurt even more. He was telling the truth. I woke up 3 days later in the palace medical wing with tubes in my arms and Matthias asleep in a chair beside my bed. He looked terrible. His clothes were the same ones he'd worn when he pulled me from that basement. Torn, blood-stained, covered in dust. His hands were wrapped in bandages from tearing through stone and wood. Dark circles shadowed his eyes like bruises. He hadn't left, I realized. Hadn't showered or changed or slept in a real bed. He'd just stayed here, waiting for me to open my eyes. When I stirred, those eyes snapped open instantly, that alpha awareness that never fully rests. Soledad. He was beside me in a second, hands hovering over mine like he was afraid to touch me. How do you feel? Should I call the healers? Do you need water? Pain medication? Anything? Water, I whispered. My voice was still ruined, scraped raw from screaming. He held the cup while I drank, his hands shaking slightly. When I finished, he set it down and just looked at me with an expression so full of pain and guilt that I almost couldn't stand it. I married someone else while you were dying under my feet, he said quietly. I danced and celebrated and toasted to a future with a woman who wasn't you, while you screamed for me in the dark. I felt something was wrong and I ignored it, because I've been trained my entire life to ignore instinct in favor of duty. I chose wrong. I chose duty, and it almost killed you. They drugged me, I said. Poisoned me. Locked me there. It wasn't your fault. It was my fault that I didn't listen to our bond, that I let them convince me you'd abandoned me, that I went through with a ceremony that felt wrong from the first moment. He pressed his wrapped hands to his face. I felt you through the bond all day, felt your fear, your pain, your desperation, and I told myself it was just my own anxiety, my own cold feet, my own weakness. I ignored my mates screaming for help because I was too well trained, too controlled, too committed to being the perfect king. I reached for his hand, the movement sending pain through my weak body. You came for me eventually. You tore through the floor to reach me. Eventually. The word was bitter in his mouth. Eventually, after hours of torture. After you'd already been poisoned and left to die. After the wedding was over and the damage was done. He looked up at me with eyes that were red-rimmed and devastated. My mother and sister tried to murder you, my own family, and I was so blind, so stupidly trusting, that I never saw it coming. What's happened to them? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. They're in the palace prison awaiting trial. Formal charges are attempted murder, conspiracy, false imprisonment, and treason, because attempting to kill the Alpha King's true mate is treason against the kingdom itself. His jaw tightened. The council is demanding execution, public execution, as an example. Something twisted in my chest. And Valentina is the most honorable person in this entire disaster. He shook his head. She knew within an hour that the bond wasn't real, felt the absence of it. When I started breaking through the floor, she was the one who told the guards to help me instead of stopping me. She annulled the marriage herself before anyone could question its validity. She's already left the palace, gone back to her family, and from what I hear, she's telling everyone exactly what happened, that Catalina and Ines tried to murder you and force a political marriage. She could have stayed quiet, I said. Could have tried to make the marriage stick. She could have, but she didn't. She chose truth over power. He finally took my hand, carefully, like I might break. Unlike some people in my family. The door opened and a healer entered. An older woman named Doctora Paz, who'd been checking on me every few hours, Matthias had told me. She examined my vitals, checked the fluids in my IV, and gave me a small smile. You're recovering faster than expected. The poison is mostly cleared from your system. The dehydration and trauma will take longer, but you're strong. When can she leave? Matthias asked immediately. A few more days. Her body needs rest and monitoring. Dr. Paz gave him a pointed look. And so does yours, Alpha King. You can't care for your mate if you collapse from exhaustion. I'm not leaving her. I didn't say leave. I said rest. There's a bed right there. She gestured to the medical cot against the wall. Use it. After she left, silence settled between us. Heavy with everything unsaid, everything broken, everything that could never be exactly the same as it was before. The council wants to meet with you, Matthias said finally. When you're strong enough. There are questions about what happened, about the approval process, about how Catalina and Ines managed to orchestrate this without anyone noticing. How did they? I asked. Manage it, I mean. The council approved me. You chose me. How did they think they could just erase me? His expression darkened. Because 3 members of the council were in on it. Councilman Ibarra, Valentina's father, and 2 others who believed an Omega from your background would weaken the kingdom. They falsified reports about your family, planted doubts with other council members, and worked with my mother to find a suitable replacement if you could be eliminated quietly. The word eliminated made my blood run cold. They were going to kill me from the start. The moment you became inconvenient to their political plans, yes. His hand tightened on mine. And I was too busy being in love and planning a wedding to see the conspiracy forming right in front of me. What happens now? I asked. To them. To us. To everything. He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my wrist. The council members will be tried alongside Catalina and Ines. I've already started investigations into every approval, every decision, every political maneuver from the past 5 years to see what else they've manipulated. As for us, he looked at me with an expression that held both hope and fear. That's your choice. My choice. You're my true mate. That's biological fact, bond fact, truth that can't be changed. But whether you want to still be my queen, whether you can forgive what happened, whether you can trust me after I failed you so completely, that's yours to decide. I won't force you, won't use the bond or my position or anything else to pressure you. If you want to go home to Dos Rios, back to your grandmother's shop, back to a life where you're safe and far away from palace politics and families who try to bury you alive, I'll make sure you're protected and provided for. Always. I looked at him, this powerful Alpha King who'd torn through stone with his bare hands to reach me, who'd destroyed his own wedding to save my life, who was now offering to let me walk away. And I thought about Catalina's voice through that door. You were never going to be Queen, Omega. Did you really think we'd let someone like you stand beside our king? They'd tried to make me nothing, tried to erase me, bury me, silence me, make me disappear as if I'd never existed. And I'd survived it. I want to testify, I said. At the trial. I want to stand in front of the council and every pack member and tell them exactly what happened in that basement. I want Catalina and Ines to see me alive and strong and still here. I want everyone who thought I wasn't good enough to be queen to watch me take my place beside you anyway. Something fierce and proud blazed in his eyes. You're sure? I'm sure. I squeezed his hand. They tried to bury me in darkness, but I'm still here. And I'm not going anywhere. The trial happened 2 weeks later in the great council hall, packed with pack members, visiting alphas, and every noble family within 3 territories. I stood before them in a simple blue dress, the same shade as the one I'd worn the day Matthias first walked into my grandmother's shop, and told my story. Every detail. Every hour in that darkness. Every sound from the celebration above. Every moment I'd felt him through the bond while he married another woman. Catalina maintained her composure until I described hearing her voice through the door, that cold dismissal. You were never going to be queen. Then something cracked in her face, and by the time I finished, she was weeping. Inés broke earlier, sobbing through my testimony, begging for forgiveness that I hadn't decided yet if I could give. The council members involved sat stone-faced through it all, even as evidence mounted against them, falsified reports, deleted documents, payments to witnesses who would testify against my character. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was exile for the council members, permanent banishment from the kingdom. For Catalina and Inés, the council wanted execution, but Matthias gave me the choice. I thought about it for a long time. Thought about revenge and justice and what I'd want if I was still that girl in the fabric shop who'd never asked for any of this. Then I made my decision. Exile, I said. Permanent. No contact with the royal family. No return to these territories. They'll live with what they did, but they'll live far away from us. Some council members protested, said it was too lenient, that treason demanded blood. But Matthias backed my decision absolutely, and what the Alpha King and his mate agreed on together became law. 3 months later, we had another wedding. Small this time. Just us, Padre Sebastian, a few guards, and my grandmother, who cried through the entire ceremony. We said our vows in her fabric shop in Dos Rios, surrounded by bolts of cloth and the smell of cotton and the life I'd lived before everything changed. Valentina sent a gift, a beautiful silver frame with a note that said, "For the queen who survived, may your strength inspire us all." And when Matthias kissed me, sealing the bond that had been there all along, I felt something I hadn't felt since the morning I was taken. Safe. Chosen. Home. They'd tried to bury me in darkness, but I'd clawed my way back to light. And now I stood beside the Alpha King. Not because someone decided I was suitable, but because I'd survived everything they'd thrown at me and chosen to stay anyway. That's real strength. That's real power. And that's the kind of queen this kingdom needed. One who knew what it meant to fight for every breath, and who would never let anyone silence her again. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, thank you. From the bottom of my healing heart, thank you for witnessing what happened to me and letting me share this truth. This channel exists because of listeners like you who believe survivors, who stand with amigas, who refuse to disappear, and who know that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt buried or erased or told you weren't enough, please hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment sharing a moment when you reclaimed your power or stood up for yourself when no one else would. Your story matters just as much as mine. Like this video if you believe some bonds are too strong to break, even when others try to destroy them. And share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive anything, even being buried alive by the people who are supposed to protect them. I'll see you in the next one, family. Keep standing, keep surviving, keep claiming the life they said you'd never have.